I'm Dean Newland, and welcome to Leadovation. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. This podcast is dedicated to the art and science of innovative leadership. Through insightful interviews with industry experts, I bring you cutting-edge strategies and experiences of innovative leadership, helping you think differently, act strategically, and achieve remarkable results. Join me as I provide insights and tools that empower you to make smarter decisions, forge meaningful relationships. Welcome to Leadovation. You've heard the phrase that we often find that small and mid-sized businesses have owners that work in the business and not on the business. And it's a common problem because we don't pull ourselves out of the day-to-day to get strategic. And so then if we did get strategic, what kind of strategies should we be thinking about? Again, it's one of those things that we often fail to do, even in our company, to be able to sit down once a quarter or maybe even once a month to really talk about strategy feels sometimes hard to do when you're as busy as you are. And even when you do finally have the time, then how should those strategies look? My next guest, my gosh, I am just delighted about how well this conversation went. Not that I was surprised that it wouldn't go well, but you never know. It's sort of a foray or a walk into the unknown when you meet people on these podcasts, and some of them are great and some of them are fantastic. And this is a really great interview. I was really pleased by how well it went because Michael Barbarita has really created a very simple, cogent, memorable way to work through a variety of different strategies that I don't care what level of business owner you are, say between 1 million and 10 million in size, before you get to be really big where you start hiring out a lot of stuff, that you would not find this to be valuable. Get your pen and paper down. Take some notes because this one really has some valuable tips and some formula around business growth and strategy. Michael Barbarita has owned and operated retail, manufacturing, and service companies for over 30 years. One of the retail companies he operated, called Ski Town USA, grew from 2.5 to 8 million in less than 5 years. And one of the products he manufactured also was called Cookies to Scoop frozen cookie dough. And he tells a great story about this, by the way. And it was featured on QVC Home Shopping Network and was selected as one of the top 20 products in the state of Massachusetts in 1997. He has sat on the board of directors of 5 different companies. He was a chief financial officer and treasurer for a large specialty retailer, and he was the chief financial officer and treasurer for all of his previously owned companies as well. Michael has been involved in the structuring of leveraged buyouts, and he also has experience in owning both commercial and residential investment real estate. Also, that guy's done a lot. He has experience in exporting and doing business on a global scale, and he is a award-winning public speaker and published co-author. He has a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. And what else? Michael is also an author. We'll hear more about that. He also has a podcast. We will hear more about that. Michael Barbarita on the Leadovation podcast. Michael, great to have you on the show. Welcome from Massachusetts. You're wearing a suit. As I said, how many times do you see somebody wear a suit? It's great to have you on the show. Would you start us off with this idea of what is a strategic CFO? Because I think sometimes, we sort of assume that they're strategic, but we don't always use them that way. I know that in organizations that I have been involved in, sometimes the CFO is right there in the C-suite, adding the financial thinking behind the strategy, and sometimes they're not. What's your perspective on that?
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for having me, Dean. A strategic CFO is a chief financial officer who understands business strategy and can actually provide input to whether it's a client or to their company on what strategies that they should implement. And they should be strategies that their competition isn't doing, because that's what one of the things that we uh, help business owners implement, not just business strategies, but this business strategies that their competition isn't doing. And by the way, 95% of all business strategies used today are identical to the competition. And quite frankly, because by virtue of that, they don't work. And
Well, that's a
so,
great point. Like
yeah,
how many organizations actually follow through on their strategies? I heard something like maybe 30%, you know?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
literally take the strategy, get out of the ideation, put it in a nice document and then really run with it. You probably have a lot of stories about great strategies, but poor implementation.
Right, that's the thing. I mean, we can all learn business strategies. That's easy to do. We could use Google, ChatGPT. We can learn
Yeah.
business strategy all we want through, a number of vehicles, but it's the actual implementation. And that's really what's critical. And all of our strategies are backed up with a step-by-step roadmap. So that's so it makes the implementation process easy and easy to understand. But if the business owner isn't willing to actually do the work to implement that step-by-step roadmap, it doesn't work.
Point taken. So when you talk about business owner, do you primarily focus on smaller organizations or are you sometimes find yourself in the mid to large organizations?
Yeah, great question, Dave. Most of the companies I work with, I work with 30 and $40 million companies, but most of
Mhm.
them land between a million and 5 million. That's where most of
Ah,
them land. Now,
got
I
it.
also work a lot of the companies some of the companies that I work with, I started with at zero, and the company was doing 75, 80 million, and then ended up selling for 125 million. So that happens, and I can
Right.
work with bigger companies. I'm a small business owner by heart. My company, when I sold my first company, it was a ski retail business. We were doing $8 million, but we started out doing two to eight. From when I bought the company, it was doing 2 million, so we bought it and then we sold it at 8 million. But so I'm a small business guy by heart, so I gravitate to the smaller business, but I can work with bigger companies for sure.
Okay, so that really helps kind of narrow my thinking and focus my questions. And I'm coming up with an idea that to me, the CFO at that level, who is also able to provide strategy, one could say that's a unicorn, Dean. You're not going to find that. I've even on my own team, I sometimes ask our vendors to take on more than what they might be typically known to do, and I get pushback like, Dean, that's a unicorn. You're not going to find that. You shouldn't be asking people that. And so, are we in the same boat when it comes to CFOs? Like, you shouldn't really be expecting a strategy person in addition to a CFO. Those are two separate positions.
Well, I think what happens is that if it's a Fortune 500 company, the CFO doesn't get the job unless he's strategic. But
Right.
fractional CFOs have been able to get away with it, and I wanted to not get away with it. I wanted to combine the two because I think it's critical that a CFO, whether they're fractional or otherwise, is strategic and understands business strategy and actually can help the client increase business because of those strategies.
Understood. Okay, so you got a book called Powerful Business Strategies. And if
Right.
I'm not mistaken, you also have a podcast by the same name.
I do.
So one goes, great. What are they, man? What are some of your top powerful business strategies that you find that these smaller companies, like you just said, 2 to 8 million, 2 to 10 million, don't normally understand or don't normally execute well?
Okay. Well, first of all, one of them is called the conversion formula. And to understand the conversion formula, when we discovered it, is um, you have the key to successful marketing is to get into the mind of the prospect. That sounds little,
No, it makes perfect
okay.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But you know what? That was discovered in 1931 from my research. So you have to get into the mind of the prospect. So it's
Okay.
almost 100 years old. And so what we did is we put together what we called the conversion formula, that incorporates those two things, getting in the mind of the prospect. And by the way, getting into the mind of the prospect is, number one, solving the problem that the prospect has and doesn't want. And secondly, offering the solution they want, they can't find. So the problem that they don't want, and the solution they can't find. And by the way, that problem can be with the industry. That could be a problem that they have with the industry, not just a particular product or service, but the whole industry. Like, for example, the construction industry. There's certain nuances that customers have that historically have had problems with construction people for one reason or another, and it's an industry-wide problem. So the problem they have, they don't want. The solution they want, they can't find. So what we did, and by the way, these are considered emotional hot buttons. If you identify the problem they have and don't want, the solution they want, they can't find, those are the emotional hot buttons. When we put together the conversion formula, we put it together so that the emotional hot buttons are first, and then it's backed up logically. And let me explain how that works. So the first step in our conversion formula is called Captivate. This is identifying the problem the customer has and doesn't want. Okay, so that's step one. It's a 4-step formula. By the way, like any formula, it's got to be done in the right order. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Okay, so the first thing is the problem. And that's the first thing that you say, or the first thing that the prospect comes in contact when the prospect comes in contact with your company. That's the first thing. It's called the Captivate, and it's the problem. Second is we call Fascinate, which is the solution to the problem that they can't find. Once again, the two emotional hot buttons to get into the mind of the prospect starts right out in the conversion formula. Captivate, Fascinate. The third is Educate. And what the Educate is now that you've captivated and fascinated the customer, you now educate them by giving them more detail on how you go about solving that problem and why it's superior to the competition. Okay, that's the logical component, by the way, of this formula. Okay, if a spouse was going to tell the other spouse why they bought something, they were attracted without a doubt by the Captivate and Fascinate, but they'll explain it to the spouse using the Educate, because it's the logical component. Because people buy based on emotion and back it up logically. And so the conversion formula follows that pattern. And then finally, offer. And the offer needs to be so compelling that the prospect can't turn it down. And there are 5 components to a compelling offer, in our opinion, through our research in our book. And you can use either one or more of these components. Okay. Number 1 is scarcity and urgency. That's number 1. Scarcity and urgency. There's only 3 left. You gotta this offer ends by Friday. So that's scarcity and urgency. Kind of common. Second is risk reversal, where the seller in the transaction takes most or all the risk. One of the strategies that helped me tremendously when I was in the ski business was a risk reversal, what we call the ski guarantee. And let me explain. So the problem the customer had in the ski industry is they never really knew if the ski they were being sold was the right ski for them until they got it up in the mountain and tried it out.
Right.
Now, this is back in the 80s. I'm an old man, remember? I think I told you that.
What did they have, like cable bindings and screw-in edges? Listen, Michael, you're talking to a skier, so you can't BS me. I know what skiing was like in the 80s and the 70s. All right, go ahead. Sorry, I had to throw that in.
No, you're right, though. I just came in after the cables. So just so you know.
Okay.
Just right after the cables.
Did the ski boots have laces or not?
No, they didn't. They were buckled. They were buckled. So
right,
I just entered that era. All right. It's not like I had 20 years behind me. I just entered that era. So we implemented, the problem the customer had is they just didn't know if the ski they were being sold was the right ski for them. So we implemented what we call the ski guarantee. Ski the ski 3 times. And of course, we didn't know how many times the skier skied it. But the ski 3 times. You don't like it, bring it back for a brand new pair and keep bringing it back until we get it right.
Nice.
This was unheard of.
Yeah.
Okay. So my managers thought I was nuts, because they thought thousands of pair of skis were going to come back and we were going to lose a ton of money. The first year we implemented the ski guarantee, we sold 8,000 pair of skis, a 25% increase from the year before, and only 8 came back.
Wow.
The next year we sold 11,000 pair and 14 came back.
Wow.
Okay. And so what was fascinating about that is we implemented a compelling offer, which was a risk reversal, along with solving a problem that the customer had, right? Which was they didn't know the ski they were being sold was the right ski for them. So we gave them we solved that problem. We gave them the solution, and we backed it up with a guarantee on the offer.
I like it.
And so that's the example of a risk reversal. The third one is adding more value to a product or service. That's the third component of a compelling offer. By the way, you can combine these. It's not either or. You can combine these.
Sure.
So adding more value to a product or service. Let me give you an example. I was in the frozen cookie dough business after the ski business. And
well, it was cold out. You got to do something.
That's right.
You got a cookie dough in your hand. You might as well freeze it and try to find a way to sell it.
That's right. Absolutely. You have to do that. So the problem the customer had in the frozen cookie dough business is they didn't want to waste valuable oven space baking cookies. Like if you're a pizza parlor, okay, your primary product is pizza. That's all you care about. You're not going to put cookies in the pizza oven. It's just you're not going to waste space doing that.
Yeah.
So what we did to add more value to our product is every opening order we gave away a free convection oven. Okay, and that solved that problem. So they had their convection oven on the side to bake the cookies, right?
Yeah.
And that solved the problem of them having to use another oven to bake the cookies.
So wait a minute. Are you talking about large companies buying these cookie things that they an order that would include a free convection oven? The convection oven would be basically a sunk cost. It would be small.
Yeah, but here's the key. I understood the long-term value of a customer.
Yeah.
All right. So
okay.
I lost on the first 3 or 4 orders.
Sure.
Okay. But and by the way, I didn't sell to bigger companies. I sold to smaller delis and those types of companies. Okay.
Well, what's an average order? Now I'm curious now.
$50.
You got me hooked.
$50 at the time. By the way, I'm old, so this is back in the 90s.
So today would be like $500. No, I'm just kidding.
Right,
so
right.
So $50 per order. And how much was the convection oven?
$200.
So this would be for obviously getting them hooked, and you would like.
I knew the long-term value of my customer.
Long-term value of the customer.
It was $5,000. It was $5,000.
Got it. Okay. Understood.
So adding more value to your product. So you don't have to be as ridiculous as I was.
Yeah.
But you can add more value to a product or service. It makes the offer more compelling. By the way,
was no guarantee. There's nothing built into the contract that said you have to now order with us for the next 10 years.
I did not.
It was.
I knew that. By the way, I got burnt on some.
Sure. But overall,
bottom line, yeah. Overall, it was fantastic.
This is really great. So, can I ask you a question? Or is there,
sure.
I know there's probably more to your story, but
yeah.
What about, so you go back to the very beginning of what you just said, was you're trying to break it into 2 pieces. You're either trying to solve a problem that somebody can't solve, your words, not mine, or my words, not yours, or you're trying to provide a solution that somebody can't find.
No, both of those have to be together.
That's what I was wondering, because I almost saw them as separate.
No, the conversion
solution
formula is like a formula.
Okay,
it's a formula.
Talk about how those 2 are the same thing.
Okay, they're not. Captivate is the problem. The first step of the conversion formula is captivate. That's the problem the customer has, doesn't want.
Right.
The second step is the solution. You're offering both the problem
the solution
and the
that they
solution.
haven't been able to figure out.
Right, that's right.
But the solution is subject to the problem.
Absolutely. In other words, the problem the customer had in the ski business is they never really knew if the ski they were being sold is the right ski for them until they got it up on the mountain. The solution was to give them the ski guarantee.
See,
which was both a solution and a compelling offer.
I get it now. See, like my mind, I don't know. I sometimes maybe complicate things more than I do, or need to. But I sometimes think about, all right, team, I do facilitations a lot. Like we could either talk about problems that we can't solve, or we can talk about opportunities that we haven't been able to figure out how to get to. And it's almost like they're two separate things. You want to focus more on problems, you want to talk more on opportunities. What you've done is you've led with problem.
Yep.
You've made the opportunity the solution to that.
Right.
Okay, I get it
So
now.
you got so captivates the problem,
Got it.
fascinates the solution, but you have to have the educate and the offer. If you don't do that, you're not finishing the formula. That's like creating water with 1 part hydrogen and 1 part oxygen. If you don't finish the formula,
I get it.
okay?
I get
It's
it.
a formula. It's got to go in that problem, solution, educate, offer. Offer has to be compelling. I gave you 3 components. There's 2 more.
Okay, sorry. I didn't
Yeah,
mean to
that's all
stop.
right. That's all right. That's all right. That's no problem.
Go for it.
So,
What are the other two?
yeah, the other 2 components is packaging and bundling. Packaging and bundling products and service together. So back to the ski business for a minute.
Yeah.
Everybody, as you know, if you're a skier, everybody packages skis, bindings, poles,
Right.
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 What we did in addition to that, okay, because it's compelling, packages have this perception of value. What we did in addition to that is we took the best ski graphics, okay, the best selling ski graphics, and we created clothing packages that match those graphics.
Like
Hat,
criminals.
like criminals. Hat, sweater, parker, pant.
Got it. And they all matched.
They all matched the most popular graphics. So after somebody sold the most popular graphics, we would take them over to the clothing department and sell them a clothing package.
So would you be giving them a discount by bundling, and you were hoping for volume?
It would be $10 to $20 lower.
And they could see that. They would know that. If I just did this a la carte, I'm going to be spending more money.
They would if they did the math, A. But
Yes.
B, they just think there's a perception of value associated with a package.
Well, plus if they all match too. I mean, like
Right. Okay. Well, that
that's
was
also nice too.
That was an influencer. Yes.
I'm coordinated. I look good. I'm
Right.
skiing not just for ski's sake, but I want to be noticed.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
So that's the 4th component. Packaging
Okay.
and bundling, services together. Okay.
Yeah.
You could do this in other industries, of course, not just the
Right.
ski industry. I'm just giving you an example. And then the final one is a little bit more difficult for people to understand and to implement. It's called indifference to the outcome. If you're connected to the outcome, meaning you want to make a sale, you're desperate to make a sale, you're thinking about making the sale. First of all, your prospect can pick up on that, A.
Of course. Yeah.
And B, right, and B, when the prospect can tell that it's about you and not about them.
Yes.
Okay, and so many sales are blown because of being connected to the outcome or not being indifferent. So here's an example of indifference. Okay, so whether you work with me or someone else, there are 5 steps that you must take in order to properly implement business strategy. And then I would go through those 5 steps.
Right. So you're giving them some
that's-
free consulting. You're not trying to make that client yours. I get what you're saying.
Right.
And you take away that pressure that they sometimes feel.
That's right.
It's funny. I use that all the time, and it's sincere. I
Yeah,
really
that's
do.
right.
I really,
Right.
Authentically, not from a technique perspective. I really say, listen, if it's supposed to be, it's supposed to be. If we're supposed to work together, then let the fates, unfold the way they're supposed to. Right? I may not be the right guy, or our company may not be the right company, but let me give you something. Because I think there was somebody who wrote the book. I don't know, was it Patrick Lencioni or somebody had a book? But even during the sales process, even during the getting to know each other process, the dating, if you will, provide value wherever you can,
Right.
from the beginning. And if it turns out that it turns into a sale, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I'm a big believer in that.
And I agree. And like you said, I too care more about the prospect, and that's how I can become disconnected as a result.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yeah.
and the other thing is, focusing on their goals during the presentation, focusing on their goals.
Yeah.
I think once you can prove that you are doing that, it's easier for the prospect to lock arms with you.
100%. So, Michael, like I came into this conversation thinking, okay, this is a CFO guy, but you're not. The CFO piece is sort of like my background, my history that maybe have given me a lot of, experience, but you really, truly, capital S, you're a strategist, maybe even strategist/sales, the way you're describing it.
Yeah, well, we
I'm
certainly
sure you
get
got
into
more than
all
one.
this.
You got more than one trick in your bag. I get it, but you certainly
Yeah.
have shared a really important one. I really love this.
Right. And so, yeah, but we do know, we do business and cash flow forecasting. We identify the critical metrics in the business. We solve cash flow problems. We do
Understood.
that.
Yeah,
It's just that every CFO does that. But they don't have the business strategy. And it took a couple of years to write that book. It's not one of these things where you and no. I give it away, by the way. I give it away. Okay, you could just go on my website and download it. But I wanted to talk about one other thing, or a couple other things. But one thing, here's something, Dean, that everybody does. I call it I hope so marketing.
Yes.
Okay? And the reason why I call it I hope so marketing, it's when people use things like largest selection, lowest price, great service, highest quality, we're the fastest, we're insured, we're honest and sincere. Okay?
Yep.
I'm saying the prospect is saying to themselves, well, I hope you have highest quality. Why would I do business with somebody who doesn't have high quality?
Why would you even need to say it in some ways?
Right. And so, but if you go to if you go to 10 websites, you'll see it on all 10 websites.
I hear you.
I hope so marketing, I call it. And that we see all the time. And that's what your competition is doing. And so people are copying that. And it's essentially because all the TV ads, like of big companies who do brand advertising, have that. But they're doing brand advertising.
Right.
It's not, and that's why business owners of smaller companies get confused. They think they have to say high quality, lowest price, best service, most convenient, great location, all this stuff. I hope so, I hope so, I hope so, I hope so, is what the prospect is saying.
When you're saying I hope so, and meaning like I hope that is in fact the case, meaning like why would you even say it? It should be self-evident. I mean, if like, hi, my name is Dean Newland. I'm with Mission Facilitators, and we have low quality. We never call you back, and we have crap service. We wouldn't ever say that. So why would you? You're right.
Right.
I get it.
So that's a trap that a lot of business owners fall into with their messaging, and that's why the conversion formula is so effective, because it identifies the problem the customer has instead of, great service, lowest price, fastest. I've seen things like honest and sincere. The Boston Strangler thought that he was honest and sincere.
Did you pull that one out of a speech that you gave that you like to say because it gets a reaction?
I did.
Yeah, you didn't just come up with that. I know that was a good one, but that's a good one. I give it to you. That was a good one. I like it a lot. No, it's a great point. I've been so interested in this lately about language. Now, in some ways, we're saying the same thing, but I'm going to take it another step further, or maybe it's a cousin to what you're saying, is the hope so marketing also seems to bring us into these repetitive words that we keep hearing over and over again, like what you're saying. Right. Yep. Why wouldn't we be honest? Why wouldn't we have quality? Why wouldn't we be responsive? And so then all of a sudden, when I right now, this wonderful little podcast that I've been so blessed to have now 4.5 years, we're going on 5 years, and we've had 270 different interviews. Somehow, Michael, I get like 3 to 12 requests a day to get on this podcast. At the beginning, I was calling up mom and cousins and stuff like, hey, get on the podcast. I need to get some momentum going, right? I needed anybody and everybody, right?
Right.
Well, we're past that. Well, now we have brokers and we're getting, the quality is getting really good. And hence you're here, right? I mean,
excellent.
But what is so fascinating is the way they pitch what they say. We're all
Yeah.
about transformational leadership. We're a
Right.
serial entrepreneur. Um,
Right.
it's those sort of phrases I see dozens and literally hundreds of times. And after
Hmm.
what, I don't even know what the frick they're talking about. So I'm telling my team, I'm telling my marketing company, I'm saying like, you guys, we have to find a different way to describe what we're talking about that's more meaningful because the words are losing their flavor. It's like,
Totally.
it's like, I know I got something in my mouth, but I can't taste what it is. That's what these words begin to feel like to me. Anyway,
I know exactly what you
I
mean. You're absolutely right,
digress.
and you're absolutely right. Another strategy that we did some research on, which is really interesting, it's called the buyer's journey, and a lot of people understand that. That people aren't ready to buy now. But what we found, and many studies showed, that only 1 to 3% of buyers in any market, in any industry, at any time are ready to buy now. The other 97 to 99% are on the buyer's journey.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if we think about our marketing, we're all going after that 1 to 3%.
Interesting point.
And that's why it's so important to stay in touch with customers because they're on this journey.
Yes.
They become aware of the product or service, and then they go on this journey. Now, that journey can last anywhere from 15 minutes to 15 years. I get a client.
Totally true.
Yes, yes.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I have my team. My team now knows us well enough, mean well enough. I go out and have dinners. I do a lot of just meet and greet people. We go to foundations. We support our companies. I just go have coffee with somebody. I'm not even there to sell them anything. They're an old client. And I got to tell you, like there are times when we have gotten nothing out of that, and sometimes they call you, 2 months, 2 years, 10 years later, and they go
right.
like, "Hey, Dean, hey, MFI, let's do some work together." In fact, we just had a company out of Minneapolis called me about 2 weeks ago and said, "We want you to lead another senior leadership team meeting for our annual retreat." And we had to move a couple of things around, but of course we're going to do that. They're a great client of ours, but it's because we keep
Yeah.
in touch with them. Your point is 100% right on.
And what's interesting about it is a lot of business owners or salespeople, sales organizations don't do it. They don't
No.
do the follow up. And what we profess, and it's not very popular, but we really love drip campaigns because they're automated, number one, and they're a sequence. And if you use the conversion formula in your
Mm.
drip campaign, okay, you can
Ah.
attract, you can shorten the buyer's journey. You won't eliminate it, but you can shorten it. You can
All right.
compress
So
the time
I
frame.
I think I'm following. I think I'm tracking. So when you talk about drip campaigns, you're talking about email marketing.
That's correct.
You're sending out newsletters or pieces of information, and you're going to send them out in a sequence that matches your process that you just described.
That's right. You have to use the conversion formula because if you use any other type of marketing like newsletters and so forth, you're just branding, which is I'm not knocking it, by the
That's
way.
fascinating. So, but each client, okay, Michael, you're getting me thinking. This is all these very difficult and dangerous when this starts to happen because my mind starts like going, okay, here we go. So
No,
each client, though, has its own pain points.
that's correct.
Are you trying to take it based on industry to say, for example, the ski industry, these are the people we're going out after? What do they all have in common? They don't know whether or not these skis are going to be the right ones until they get to the mountain. So we're going to market directly to them using this particular formula and that sequence.
That's correct. But there's more than one problem usually
Right.
in an industry or in a product in a company, a product or service. There's more than one problem that the customer has and doesn't want. One of the reasons is, Dean, there's multiple products. They have multiple products.
Yeah. And we do too. I mean, so then how do
Yeah.
you, God, so,
Got to remember, they're on this journey.
right,
Think
right.
of it as a think of it as a journey. The first problem might not be theirs. Like the first drip campaign email might not be their problem.
All right, but
Okay.
would you follow though the process, the conversion process, the conversion
Yes.
formula,
Formula.
and start over again at the top of that formula process with another problem,
The
and
next
we'll run through
email
that
is going to
cycle.
be, that's right.
All right, so let's get brass tacks. What sort of results are you getting? Because personally, for me, I've been kind of nay, nay on the email marketing because for me, I get so much crap. I just reject most of it, if not 90% of it. Are you seeing? You must be seeing that it's making some sense to you to do this. Otherwise, you wouldn't
Eh,
talk about it. But
Right.
what's been your results?
What we're finding is that people are taking less time to make a buying decision. That's what we're finding, because we're getting more business as a result of it. It's not just our day-to-day marketing that's going after the 1 to 3%. It's the combination of going after the 1 to 3% and marketing to the 97 to 99% that are on this journey.
But these are clients that you have worked with in the past, or that are unknown to you and you to them.
Some of them. That's right. No, you're right. I'm not. That's very true.
That's
And
okay. Interesting. So, all right, this is opening
another
up my mind.
another strategy that we use is a squeeze page.
That sounds
Because
very personal.
once again, we identify.
Sorry. I had to. It was a low hanging fruit.
I know, and I do throw those softballs up every once in a while.
Yeah. Okay. So, what is a squeeze page?
So a squeeze page is a one-page website that focuses on just one problem, a solution. It might offer a free report as the offer, okay, and then the prospect, once they get that free report, they go into a drip campaign.
Ah.
So it's getting new prospects, but by identifying the problem and the solution. And once again, you have a video to educate them. So you have a problem, a solution, a video to educate them, and then an offer, which is usually a free report or some carrot to get their email address.
And you have a separate page per problem.
Yes.
Hence the squeeze reference.
Yes.
That not associated, not a tab within your own website.
No, big problem.
Standalone URL.
Oh, that because the mind goes wander when you do that. You know, the prospect goes to all different options.
Fascinating. So
dedicated squeezes.
That's great. I like this a lot. I really do. I wasn't sure about this. I was
It's
like
a lot
going,
of fun.
oh, how's this going to go? You know,
I know.
yeah.
I know.
This is actually opening up. This is really fascinating.
Cash flow.
This is good. All right. So again, you're back to working with medium or small companies. You're consulting with them on this process. You've got this cool book. You got this great website, but I should say podcast, right?
Yep.
What other great little tidbits can you give us before we have to say goodbye?
Well, I like to talk about what I call 7 action steps for business owners in uncertain times. You know, this tariff stuff and there's, you know, these higher interest rates and all this different stuff creates certain stress for business owners. I mean,
Agreed.
Let's call a spade a spade.
Yeah, right.
So I have some quick, I'll run through them quickly, but the first action that business owners take is they have to have the ability to adapt and be flexible to change. Most people don't change and therefore never adapt. And that as a result, they never thrive in uncertain times. You have to be able to adapt to different environments. The ones who don't, most people don't, and that's why most people don't thrive during uncertain times. Now, they could be a bad economic time, that could be uncertain, or any uncertain. I think it's uncertain now with these tariffs, but that's just me.
Has there ever been a time, Michael? Okay, I'm sorry.
Where it's not uncertain.
Where it's not uncertain.
Good point.
90s, the 2000s. No, have we ever said like, hey, guess what? We just entered into some certain times. Let's all enjoy that.
You're right. But there is a stressometer, I believe, in the world, okay, for business owners. And it's it's right now. If that stress meter is a 1 to 10 or a 0 to 10, yeah, it's not that hard.
Yeah, okay.
It's going like this.
It's shaking. Okay.
It's shaking. So that's one, the ability to adapt. Second, we always, as business owners, we always have to keep in mind our personal goal, not our business goal, but our personal goal, our number one personal goal. Most business owners, it's building the business up so that I can have the time freedom to spend with my family and do the things that I want and reinvest. That's what most business owners. Some business owners just want to leave a legacy. But for the most part, it's time freedom and consistent revenue or consistent profit. That's the nirvana for most people.
Yeah.
But you have to define that, and that's very important to keep that in mind. And then you document your business goals. Then you understand what your business goals are. And usually you should start with net profit first, then revenue goals. Everybody starts with the revenue.
Yeah, no, right.
It should be net profit. That's what goes to that's what goes in your profit.
That's what pays for your kids' braces, right?
That's right. That's right. And then you should always have, if you have your number one goal, personal goal, and your business goals in mind, this gives you that visionary mindset. And you should always make decisions based on your vision, not what's happening today.
Agreed.
Okay. And so that's the other part. And then, of course, because I'm a CFO, you got to know your numbers. Okay. Yeah. And a business and cash flow forecast to me is the greatest tool that's on earth, because it helps you see it helps you make a decision and see what's going to happen. Okay. In all likelihood, probability wise. And then you're able to make a decision easier based on the fact that you can see what the business is going to look like in 3 months, 6 months, 10 months, 12 months, whatever range it is. And then you're going to implement the right business strategy. This is another thing, right? This is what we've been talking about today. And finally, you got to control your costs. You know that you have to understand what is driving customer, the costs that are driving the customer engagement. What costs are helping you acquire a customer? What costs are helping you keep a customer? All those should be kept. And what costs increase the long-term value of a customer? All those costs should be kept. But everything else, if it doesn't involve acquiring a customer, if it doesn't involve increasing the long-term value of a customer, and then if it doesn't help deliver your product or service to a customer, those are the expenses you should keep.
And my friend, is this all in your book?
It is.
So again, where can we find it?
nextstepcfo.net.
And what's the name of your podcast?
Powerful Business Strategies.
And how do we get a hold of you on LinkedIn?
Just my name, Michael Barbarita.
Okay. And are you always this fun?
I don't know. I'm sure people who know me.
Are you married?
No, I'm not.
Aha!
I've never been married, so that might be the secret. Yes.
Are you kidding me? That was never a goal of yours?
Never a goal of mine. Never a goal of mine.
Well. He's got a suit. He's got a tie. He's got a tie that matches his little yellow pocket square, but he doesn't have a wife or a partner.
Right. That's right.
Sorry.
Unbelievable.
I'm sorry you don't live nearby. I would call you up and I would say, let's go out and continue this conversation. I really would. That's the problem with this great podcast, is that I get to meet such great people. But you're in flippin' Philly area or north of there, right?
No, I'm in Boston. I'm in the Boston area. I'm actually about a mile. About 50 miles from Boston on Cape Cod.
Oh, Cape Cod, are we?
Cape Cod.
Cape Cod.
Cape Cod.
Do you really live on Cape Cod?
Yeah, I do. I just moved.
Can I call you an asshole?
Yes, you may.
No, Cape Cod is gorgeous, dude. I mean,
It is. It is.
well done for being on Cape Cod. That's great. Wait, listen, I'm so glad this worked out. I know we had some technical problems.
We did.
Earlier this week. We were both standing in front of our computers wondering where the hell the other one was, and we had to reschedule for today. I'm really glad it worked out. I'm really very, very, I mean, sometimes, you hear some cool stuff and other times you don't. You just sort of forget about it. I'm going to remember this, and I'm going to go to your website. I'm going to take a look at this stuff. It's really... It's simple. It makes sense. I love the formula idea of it, that it can be repeatable. It just sort of lands with me, that I think especially for smaller businesses. When you get to the bigger ones, you've got departments that muck things up in their own way,
But they still do, I hope, so marketing, even the big guys.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay.
Michael, I wish I could keep talking to you, but I do hope that we stay in touch. Let's connect on LinkedIn, right? And
we already are. We already are, by the way.
Oh, wait. All right. We are.
Yeah.
We are.
All right.
Definitely. This has been great.
All right. Thanks so much.
You bet.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to Leadervation with Dean Newland. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about Dean or Mission Facilitators Leadership, go to mfileadership.com. That's mfileadership.com, or check the show notes. Reimagine, facilitate, flourish. Transform your leadership success with Leadervation.